I thought Ashley was amazing, and she didn't use notes. But I'm distracted, so you would want me to have notes. So I am the person that if your grades are horrible, but you're really involved in things, this could be your future. This could be it. We all have what makes us unique that we bring to the world. And so we have, some people are great at math, or they're incredible project planners, or they're artistic, or they're dreamers, and we can define what that is. Mine is classified as a disorder, and it's attention deficit disorder. And I recognize that it's very popular now, one, because it helps you get Adderall, or that iPhones have sort of moved us into this short attention span, but I am the real deal. And so my family comes from a rich history of autism and ADD and ADHD, but I really see it as a gift, and I could go into how it plays out. But to get to the point, which I rarely do, is that it's hard for me to stay focused at matters of hand. And so I just don't. I don't try. I focus on what captures my attention the most, because I get bored incredibly easily. And so it will come as no surprise to any of you involved in student affairs. The student affairs provides a joyous, joyous distraction from everything else academic. And so getting a business degree and then being able to constantly head off to meetings, or to being an RA and doing my tours or writing people up or whatever it was, which was very stressful, it was exactly what I wanted. And there was a woman, Jude Boyer, who I'll talk a little bit about. How many knew her here? Oh my gosh, so sad. So she, not for you, but she was vice president of student affairs, and the first time I really worked with her was on this room and board committee, and we'd set the fees for all of the residence halls for the following year. And in our very first meeting, and it's all student leaders from around the campus, and then all university, the bigwigs. And her first meeting, she said, I don't want anyone to use going to class or a scheduling conflict or homework as an excuse not to make these meetings. And I was like, I'm home. This is great. So that was my beginning. And before I get ahead of myself, because we had little outlines for our Redbird talk, so we're supposed to have a theme. And so I think my message and my theme, but it could change, is have everyone at the table. Life is more fun when we're all working together. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. And if none of that ends up coming up, then I would say, take this home. Never give anyone a puppy as a housewarming gift. It will never, never work. So that's something that you can take to the bank. I will say that I have had an extraordinary, I feel like a privileged life to be a life of service. I have almost always worked for nonprofits. I've worked for the Red Cross. I worked for Lambda Legal, a gay rights group. I worked for the Shriver Center, which worked in poverty law, and then now this job at the state. And it's a gift to be in service to others, and it's a joy to be able to focus on the things that you care about and be involved in that work. I've had a million heroes and people that have guided me, beginning with amazing parents that I lost recently, so I can't talk about it much. But I had 3 advisors here that were huge mentors to me, and I wanted to talk about each of them a little bit. The first is Trish Williams, and she was my hall coordinator when I first became an RA, and she was doing her thesis on the Myers-Briggs. She had actually studied under Isabel Briggs, and so the RAs were, we were her study. We were what she was writing her thesis about. So they had picked us all on different types, and we were extreme. So I'm an ENFP, if that, how many people are familiar with Myers-Briggs? Oh, of course. So in Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENFP, but I am all E, all N, all P. I literally have no points on the other side. And then thinking and feeling, I'm a little balanced. So we would work together, and we would solve problems and try to figure out things. And I learned in that experience was that my intuition, which I believe is razor sharp, almost to the point of being psychic, that that was not enough. It was not enough for me just in an RA interview to tell someone I just didn't like them, and then everyone else would fall in line and understand that. I'd realized that I had to be able to relate to all the people on my team, and I had to figure out, and sort of situationally, like this person needs facts to help decide where they're going to go. And that has served me my entire life, because when I'm putting a team together of people, I'm always looking at what am I balancing out. And this may not be the best advice, so don't write this one down. But it's that I don't believe, at least for me, that it makes sense to work on what I'm not good at. I'm much better at working at what I'm great at and getting even better, and then working with the people that I can to complement me and to bring in those skills. I will never be able to plan my work and work my plan, although I dream of that day. When I say it at work, people laugh. But it's to find the right people around me that can make that possible. The second was a woman named Geneva Walker Johnson. I love these people. They're still part of my life. Geneva Walker Johnson is African American, as was Trish. They both came to ISU together. Geneva was in some important job that was just below the head of housing, and she was my advisor when I was president of the Association of Residence Halls, and she was a civil rights leader in her own right. She had marched with Martin Luther King. She had a brick thrown at her in New York City. She wore her feelings on her sleeve. And as president of ARH, she worked really hard with this kid from Springfield, Illinois, to realize what my privilege afforded me and the importance of diversity and the importance of inclusion and bringing everyone to the table. And it's hard work, and God bless you. And so one of the things, like, and I can go back and think of a million examples, but two that jump out at me are, one was we had a black student union, and so in the residence halls we had realized one of the problems was that some of the African American students were struggling with basically a white form of student government that we had set up and how we used Robert's Rules of Orders. And so we set up this separate student government that was supposed to complement ARH, and that we would all be able to work better together. And it was very quick where we realized we had created this not working separate but equal style where we had a black student government and a white student government. And so I'm like, we didn't work, we tried. And Geneva's like, then we're trying again. And we kept trying and we kept trying. And the lesson here is, it never is easy. Our country is forged on racism, and it's forged on dividing people, and we see it happening now in our politics. But there is an extraordinary joy in diversity. And there is an extraordinary joy, and I could talk to you about all the problems and how hard it is to make it work, and I guarantee you, wherever you're at in life, this will be the main conversation, is how do we talk about diversity and how do we do inclusion? And diversity is great. Inclusion, where we're all brought to the table and we're all able to work together, is the most important. And then the one example, I'm gonna go over my time. Can I do that? I'm distracted. The one example that I think of would be with the Latino audience, which is when we were working on marriage, and we were pulling together this big coalition, and we had these Latino members that we had brought into the coalition, and they clearly didn't want to be there. And so we began to explore, and that's sort of one of the places I'm good at, sort of recognizing those cues. And they had been working on immigration issues and been working with Senator Durbin, and we had become this big distraction, this big marriage project for the LGBT community. And they're like, this is what we were working on, and now we've had to stop everything. And so we took a break, and we were like, how can we help you? We have all these different people at the table. We're going to work on that. Our issues were sort of similar. They wanted full inclusion in all that America's promise is supposed to have. We, as the LGBT community in marriage, wanted the same thing. So we took a break, but what that break did, it allowed us to work with Dick Durbin and bring him to the table in our fight. It allowed us to bring other people that normally wouldn't have seen marriage as their fight join us, because they saw that we were not single-minded. The third person, and I just think of her as the Queen of Illinois State, was Judy Boyer. So Judy Boyer was this amazing woman. She looked insane. She had this huge white beehive that went back. She smoked in her office, even though you weren't supposed to. And I learned a lot of practical lessons from her. But the biggest, I can't say the biggest, but the how-tos of working through committees and processes was probably the most appropriate. So she would make sure everyone was at the table first. And so when we're doing these room and board, setting these fees, she would make sure that all the students were there and all the faculty and whoever had to be involved. But we would start from the beginning. And we would go through and she'd make sure there was a level playing field, that we all understood the facts, that we knew what it was, that we knew what the hard decisions were. My goal was to get MTV and cable in the dorms, residence halls. And she's like, first we have to keep the elevators running. First we have to do this. And so we would go through and figure out all of these pieces. I can tell you, I've never managed a budget bigger than the residence hall budget in my entire life. My department now is 18 million. We're the smallest agency in the state of Illinois, but powerful. But the point is, to be able to do that, and what I learned from Jude was, she had all the stakeholders at the table. So if something was gonna go wrong, she knew it right then. If there was opposition, I didn't wanna pay for the Redbird Arena. I didn't wanna have my money go to the Redbird Arena that wasn't gonna be here when I was a student. But she would help you understand and see that, because when you finished that project, it got through everywhere. It got through the president of the university, and it got through the Board of Regents, and it got through the Illinois Assembly, because she had the whole student body behind her. And it was such a lesson. And I find that most of my work takes place in coalition or on teams. And if I have any expertise, it's bringing people together, and those skills have come back a lot. But the thing that I remember Judy the most for is her sense of humor, is the intent that she brought. When you met with her, you felt like you were the most important person in the world. And I think I was the most important person in the world when she was there. She pushed everything aside, and she had a sweet chair and a coffee table, and we'd sit there and we would talk about things going on. But she didn't care if you screwed up. She gave you permission to make mistakes, and that's something we don't do a lot. That's something we're so careful with budgets and so careful with the choices we're going to make, and should I take that class or not? And the one story I'll tell about her that took place here is we had a passing of the gavel, and it was this ARH. So the previous president and I wanted to not take it up a notch, and so we were going to do it in the Bone Student Center, and it was the Founders Room, which was a big new deal at the time, and it had real china. And so we went in and we had this beautiful passing of the gavel, and it went great. And about 10 at night, I got a call in my dorm from residence hall from Judy Boyer, and she's like, your student leaders stole the china. And I'm like, what? And she goes, yeah, we have this china now for 2 months, and you have taken at least 6 place settings and all of these cups. And so I was just sort of silent, and knowing what she was gonna say next, which was, you need to get it back. And I go, I don't even know half the people in the room. And she said, well, you're a student leader. What an awesome opportunity. I'll see you at 5 o'clock in my office with all of the china. So I call my friend Dan Wagner, who's my vice president, and we called people throughout the night trying to track down silverware and china. And I'm like, this is it. This is my first and last day as a student leader. So we go to her office, and it's at 5 o'clock, and we have these 2 big Xerox boxes full of whatever china we could scrape up. And we go in, and she's laughing. And she has this bottle of fake champagne, because you couldn't have alcohol, and maybe you probably still can't, in the Office of Student Affairs. And we sat, and she told us horror stories from her years of things that had happened. And at the end of our meeting, she reached in the box and gave us each a coffee mug from the Bone Student Center. And she said, this will be a nice souvenir of your first day as a student leader. And that's the mug that I use to this day. And it reminds me mainly of patience. Of especially patience with young people. And in the nonprofit world, which I encourage for everyone, and certainly in the state, we don't pay well. Sorry. So, but what we do is we provide more responsibilities than you would normally get. So you sort of get a play up, and you develop these incredible skills, and then some people leave and make a ton of money or go consulting, and some really find it's their passion and they stay with it. But I forgot where I was going with that, so that's the end of that point. And then obviously when you're going through school, you end up meeting new people and bringing them all along. And I will say, all of my Illinois State people, and that's what made your example so awesome with Steve, they've always all stayed with me. So when I'm working on bills, it's like, who can I call from Illinois State that I know? Where is this senator from? But the one thing that I did when I went to Chicago on the side was I started Second City and doing improv. And I don't know how many have had experience with improv, but there's a very simple rule to improv, and it's yes and. And so the basic premise of it is, if I'm on stage and there's 2 of us, and I make an initiation. So I say, let's sled down this amazing hill. You, as my partner on stage, can say whatever you'd like in response. But if you say something like, I'm not on a hill, I'm in a restaurant, or I'm afraid of sleds, so I think I'm just going to stay here, you've killed our scene, or you've at least stopped it, because now we've started over again. And so I'm going to have to join with what you're saying, or we're going to be on stage saying no. But if you say yes, if you say, yes, it would be a great day to sled, and in fact, let's stand up on the sled and go flying down so we can look at this big, beautiful world, then you have given us 1,000 places to go. And so the weird thing about being at Second City is you start realizing how often you say no in your life, and you say it a lot. And start examining that if you can, even today. Start thinking of all the times when someone offers you something to do and you say no. And so I really made a concerted effort to start saying yes to smart things, not like crystal meth or something, but like things that you could do that are positive. And it ratcheted everything up because I started taking risk. And so if people told me, we want you to chair this committee on Operation Desert Storm, or we want you to work with the Urban League on this project where we're really going to bring people together, I would say yes. But I need someone to be able to take notes because I'm going to be horrible at taking notes, or I'm going to need someone to help me with all of these aspects. And people come and want to help you. And that was a huge lesson. And what it allows is it allows you to be bold and look for big ideas and move forward. And then the last thing that I'll say, unless I come up with something else, is it's okay to be uncomfortable. But no one wants to be uncomfortable. And when I think of issues of working on race issues, it's uncomfortable. And so what we do, like for example, when I first started at Illinois State, my roommate, Billy Lee Ruffin, was from the South Side, extraordinary religious, always wore a suit, never watched TV, and we were so different. And so we didn't talk for quite a while. But once we started to get to know each other and talk about our differences and be a little uncomfortable, it's okay. And that's when we learn and grow. And when you think of any time you're uncomfortable, whether it's pain because something's happened, life is asking you to examine what's making you uncomfortable. And so it could be something that someone's asking you something morally wrong that you don't want to do. And those are the moments in life when you look and say, I need to think what's happening here, and I need to learn from it and move forward. So with that, I want to say I'm so thankful for ISU because it gave me such tools and this box that I'm always going back to and working on, and it's still delivering new opportunities for me. And my summary would be bold, allow for big ideas, stay focused on the outcome when you're working on meetings or things or getting your degree or whatever it is, but know that the process is where all the joy is happening. The process is where all of the magic's happening and where the fun is and where you're getting to know people and do things. And make the table as wide as you can. Find the people as different from you as you possibly can because it's pure joy. Thank you.